Good morning, beautiful people. Today we're going to be talking about the interview that 48 Hours did with Janis Cox and Summer Shetland. I'm just going to start out by letting you know that they got on a bandwagon with Melanie Pulowski to publicly defend Laurie Daybell. In that interview, there was many things said, many things that didn't seem to resonate with us the way that the rest of the world was viewing the situation. Summer Shetland decided to tell the world that she felt it was terrible, that we had sort of a mob mentality and we were slaughtering Laurie out in the public square. And the news reporter asked her, where could the children be? And both of them defined their answers by saying that Laurie has been a beautiful mother, that she would never harm her children, that her whole life has been in protection. She's invested her whole life in those children, says Janis Cox, Laurie's mother. I want to share with you that it is unbelievable that, yes, two relatives would get on public news media. It wasn't like they were just saying it on some Facebook page that was privately tagged. It wasn't like they were talking intimately between themselves on some type of social media forum that no one else would be able to see unless they were family or friends or liked with them. So this was an actual campaign. And I'm going to share with you why I think it was a campaign. I think it was a campaign to start because it was well rehearsed. They were saying the same buzzwords. And a lot of the words that they said were very similar to what Melanie Pulowski had been saying over and over. It is interesting that at the beginning of that 48 hours conversation with the news reporter and us, because that's who they're speaking to, is us. We're their audience. So at the very beginning, the 48 hours did something probably not unique, but was very interesting in my opinion. Before Janice thought she was on live, she made the comment. She says, well, she looks at Summer, well, we're just going to keep to our goal. Yeah, our goal is to tell the truth. And she looked at Summer like, oh, I hope I have this down pat. I hope I have a goal 100% solid. It wasn't a look like, hey, we're spearheading this damnation of our sister. We're going to spearhead this and change the world over. It was, we have a goal that we've rehearsed. That's how I took it. And it was at the very first part of that 48 hours interview. And hello, everybody. It was at the 48 hours interview where I believe Janis Cox, the mother of Laurie Daybell, thought she was off camera. But to me, it showed that it was collusion. If you were telling the truth, if you are saying just the facts of what you know, you don't need to rehearse. You do not need to have a goal. The goal is, I would think, come on, people, I would think it would be Let's find JJ and Tylee in good condition. That would be my goal. It wouldn't be my goal is to paint Laurie in such a light that they can change the reality of the people. And sorry about that. I did not realize that the lens wasn't on. Sorry about that, people. So anyways, the deal is, hey guys, again, you don't need a goal to say what's right. You do not need a goal. You just say it. You just get on TV and you say it. But as I said before in many videos, or at least a few, that I think is all rehearsed, and much more rehearsed than most people. And the mob mentality was the opposite. Please reverse that for us, people. The mob mentality was the Cox, Daybell, Gibb, Pulowski, and I can't think of any other names to throw on, but you get my gist. That was the mob mentality in reverse. They were the mob trying to hang us in the public square, hang us for having such nasty thoughts about Laurie. Not that there would be any reasons to have any nasty thoughts. This was her fifth husband. I think it was 17 days after his wife mysteriously dies in her sleep. And they're saying, oh yeah, we agree. Laurie's made a lot of mistakes with a couple of her husbands. What do you mean a couple? It's the reverse again. They made mistakes with her. Stop protecting Laurie Daybell. And today we're going to be talking about stop protecting Janis Cox. On that day, on that 48 hours, she said that Janis Cox, the grandmother of JJ, but I'm not going to do this to Kay Woodcock and Larry Woodcock without their permission. I'm going to say that no, Janis Cox was never JJ's grandmother. Janis Cox was never Tylee's grandmother. I'm just going to erase that thought. Don't even give her that title, because guess what? You don't just get the title, you earn the title. And as you will see in what I tell you right now, it's nothing new, but it's a way to look at the criminal acts. So let's put it this way. On that news broadcast, she tells us that JJ and her had a lovely conversation on October 1, 2019. Now, you know that the evidence prior to the GPS of Alex Cox's telephone, his cell phone, showed that the last motion that the police think that JJ ever had was that day, either September 8th or, September 23rd or September 24th. The police believe that he was killed on that date. And they have evidence to probably pull a case forward of murder. Now, if JJ was last seen on that ring camera, and the neighbor's ring camera, and that's the last time he was ever seen, then how is Janis Cox talking to JJ on October 1? Not only did she have a 97-minute conversation in total, she claims that she had a nice little gibberish chat with JJ during that 97-minute conversation. the deal is as we all can deduct, there is no way that a 97-minute conversation with her daughter indicates that JJ was alive. But she said she talked to him, so that changes it. Now we have a witness. Now we have a witness that is saying that she talked to JJ on October 1. Well, let's reduce this down to criminality. Where in all of this can a crime be commissioned by Janis Cox? Well, one thing, to commit a crime, there's usually two parts. Is thinking. You got to think out the crime. I mean, your brain's got to say, I'm going to commit a crime. And two, the action of a crime. So then you got to think out a crime and then act upon it. So obviously, Janis Cox thought out a crime by demonstrating to the world by that telephone record, that 97-minute call. She demonstrated that she was thinking about committing a crime. It is when she acted upon it and when she identified that conversation, that 97-minute conversation, as part of a conversation that she had with JJ. That's when she acted upon it. She acted upon the crime when she told the world. Now, what can be done in the state of Arizona for people who commit a crime? As far as I can tell, and it's only my kind of pea-brain analysis of this, is because I'm not an attorney, I'm not, part of the judicial system, but I have deduced this. I have deduced that the crime can be actually addressed as a misdemeanor. Now, I'm not sure if that means it'd be a misdemeanor if the crime was to the FBI. I don't know how that changes that. I'm going to just speak about the crime if it was reported to the police, to the Arizona police, or anyone that's state issued law enforcement person. I'm not going to speak on a federal level because I really have no clue. It's really beyond my thinking. But the idea is that she could be charged with a first kind of degree misdemeanor. There's 3 different degrees of misdemeanors in the state of Arizona. And she would be the highest. She would be the highest. And what could those charges be if she was? What are the penalties? What are the consequences of Miss Janis Cox lying to us and possibly to the police? Now, that's where we're going to separate it. We're going to separate it. If she only lied on the 48 hours program, she hasn't committed a crime. Why? Because this misdemeanor, or however you want to phrase it, has to be done to a law enforcement officer. So she would have had to have gone to the law enforcement officer in the state of Arizona and handed them a copy of that telephone report. And she would have had to have said, this is the day, October 1, that I had a short conversation with my lovely grandson, JJ. At that point, that is when she could be charged, because it was directly reported to a police officer or any type of law enforcement except again the federal. I really don't know when you're a federal law enforcement how those rules change for them. So with that said, I'm going to say to you that she could be facing, just for that, just for a penalty, if she reported it to the law enforcement people, her penalty could be $2,500, 6 months in jail, and 3 years probation. Any of those. I believe, and again, I'm not an attorney, so don't take this as fact. This is my belief. My belief is she could spend 6 months in jail. She could be penalized $2,500, and she could be on probation up to 3 years for her lying to police officers. Now, when she spoke on 48 Hours, you well known, unless it was a police officer that she was speaking to in that room, then she wasn't speaking to a police officer. She was only speaking to us, which wouldn't fall under this particular lie. Now, if you remember from the Keith Morrison interview way back when, of I would think it would be Melanie Gibbs' interview, one of her first interviews. I think he assured us that the authorities knew from that first time that they went and did the welfare check on JJ and Tylee around Thanksgiving of 2019, that the children were no longer with us. The authorities, from what I understand from listening to Keith Morrison, that those children were never thought to be alive past that day. I mean, just like all of us, I think the authorities had hope that they were wrong, but I believe the authorities always knew that the evidence leaded them to nowhere, that the children were physically nowhere. So with that said, I'm going to say, could Chad be similarly charged for things like that? Because didn't he report to the law enforcement as well? I know that we're going to see him get charged with murder charges for both children. There's no question. And I'm hoping that the murder charges reach Charles Vallow, and they reach, of course, his wife, Tammy Daybell. So, but could he be charged with similar things? Because at one point I know he spoke to the police and he said the children were fine. And he went along with many of Laurie's crazy statements about being at a movie theater and take a picture of anyone that resembled JJ. So anyways, why would she go to the trouble to say that she had proof, the so-called conversation on October 1? What was her purpose going on national media that day and telling us? I don't understand it. So this would be a class 1 misdemeanor. As I said, it would fall under knowingly making false statements to law enforcement. And again, I'm not sure if those law enforcement statements apply to federal law enforcement. That might change it. That might change it. We know the FBI are federal employees. Could the federal marshals be involved? We don't know that, if the marshals are on the case or have been on the case. So here we go, guys. We got a woman that says that during that statement, she says, JJ knows us. Now, I'm lost for words, as you can see. I'll sit here and stutter for 3 minutes. What do you mean your grandson knows you? I mean, what kind of statement does a grandmother say unless they lived, like in some kind of third world country where there's no airplanes and there's no public transportation, I could see her saying that, but they lived in the same metropolitan area of Phoenix. Of course your grandchildren know you, but let's go back. Let's erase that for Laurie Daybell's mother. JJ wasn't her grandchild. I'll declare that today. JJ was never Laurie Daybell's grandchild. She isn't worthy to be a grandmother of such a precious soul. So no longer when they talk about grandparents am I going to include Janis Cox. Just have that on the record, because the only grandparents were Kay and Larry Woodcock. The only ones that did what was right. The only ones that saw evidence that was strikingly hitting them square in the face and going with it. They weren't building campaigns like Melanie Pulowski and Janis Cox and the rest of the Cox Daybell cult. They weren't devising plans. They weren't rehearsing. They didn't have to rehearse. The most they had to rehearse before an interview was what law enforcement suggested for them not to say that they were privy to, that might interrupt, their strategy. That was the only thing that Kay and Larry were probably advised on, how not to, interfere with the investigation of JJ and Tylee. And I am sure they held that close to their heart during all of those conversations with us through the news media. They were probably thinking, yes, we want to say really what we know, but we're told we can't, because it's going to obstruct justice. It's going to take the legal case in a different situation, in a different direction. So they did what they were supposed to do as honorable grandparents of JJ and Tylee. Tylee is no longer, in my eyes, Janis Cox's grandchild. She is no longer Summer Shitlett's niece. She is no longer, of course, Alex Cox's niece. Daybell's stepdaughter, Laurie's daughter. As far as I'm concerned, from the day they found those bodies in the states that those bodies were in, knowing that they suffered in those Cox family's hands, with Melanie Pulowski boosting them up like she was a shot of, truth. She was truth serum. Go back and listen to her interviews. She was truth serum. Right. Truth serum if you belong in Satan's world, if you belong in evil, if you belong where children get harmed in the most egregious fashion that a child could ever be harmed. So we go back to the mental state of Janice. What could have been happening with her? What was going on in her mind that she decided knowingly to state the fact that she had talked to JJ October 1? Do you guys, now I'm going to look at I haven't looked at the chat, so I'm going to hope I can see it. I'm going to look at it. Do you guys, for 1 minute, think she devised a plan to cover for Laurie, saying that you're wrong? He didn't disappear then. He was seen after September 23rd. Do you think she did it on purpose? Yeah. So the legal term or the judicial term is mens rea. And that means you have to have the thinking to commit a crime. You have to, to be charged with a crime, the state has to prove that you thought out this crime, that it just didn't happen out of nowhere. It didn't happen because you had like a twinge in your knee and your knee struck the person next to you on the bus. No, you thought about kicking that person on the bus. You didn't just have this autonomic twinge that made you kick the person on the bus. So you had to have the thinking. So there's two parts of a crime, the thinking of the crime and the physical acting of the crime. So I believe she had the thinking, she had thought it well out, and then she acted upon it. And her action is proved within supplying the phone bill. That's her acting on it. If she was just thinking out loud, then can we really charge her with a crime? I don't know. I don't think so. But when you're actually showing a phone bill and suggesting this phone bill is the evidence, that means that she took action to commit crime. It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. You know how sometimes we say something and we say it and then we go, why'd we even say that? It doesn't even make any sense. Well, in this case, she wasn't doing that. She wasn't just making a statement and then trying to retract it. She was making a statement and backing it up with her action of bringing along that telephone bill and highlighting the conversation that lasted for 97 minutes. So I'm going to share with you on an evil note. In that 97 minutes, what were Janis Cox and Laurie Daybells talking about the deaths of their grandchildren and their children? Are they that evil people that 97-minute phone call was talking about? I don't know that answer. I'm just saying, boy, did Laurie have a lot to say to her mother just a week after JJ's demise, just 2 to 3 weeks after Tylee's demise. Okay, I'm going to read some. Trish Robinson says, how many more people are involved is what I want to know. How many people are in this cult? Trish Robinson, I believe from the interviews that we have seen with Melanie Gibb and some of Chad's so-called friends that have come out and said they can't believe he did as he did, that he was involved with what he's been involved with. To me, I believe there's many with his thinking. I believe they don't identify themselves as a cult. And who would? I mean, who would go around saying, I'm part of Chad Daybell's cult? But I believe there's many more with their hallucinogenic thinking. See, I grew up in the 60s. I was a teen, just edging on a teen in the 60s, and then in the young 70s. And everywhere in the high schools, there was hallucinogenics for sale. In my high school and my middle school, they'd put out signs and they'd stand on the corner of the hallways and it would say orange sunshine, which was probably at that time the worst hallucinogenic that you could ever take, because it really made you have bizarre thinking. Well, guess what? All of these people with this zombie, crazy they've been doing what the teens did in the 60s and the 70s, popping hallucinogenics, finding a field, going up and looking at the stars and making up stories. That's what they've been doing. That's my story of how I think they're feeling and actions. Their feelings and their actions look like they're on a hallucinogenic high. And the sad thing with this case is a lot of the people that got that delusional ended up jumping off a cliff or out windows back then. They didn't want to commit suicide, but their brains were so delusional from the hallucinogenic that they would jump out of windows, like at college dormitories and off the sides of cliffs. This is how I feel that the Cox Daybell cult members, clan, posse, mob, whatever you want to put on as a label, criminals. This is how I see that they are. They have such delusional thinking. They have not drank the Kool-Aid. They've taken too much LSD. Boy, you ask one question and I go on a rant. Sorry, guys. Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy you're here. And thank you for coming in with the live. My headphones that I usually speak into got damaged. And so I'm speaking right to the computer itself. So I'm not sure. You're probably picking up. It's Monday, or yes, it's Monday and it's dump day. So the trash truck keeps coming by. So you'll keep hearing that, but pretty soon he'll be done with all sides of the canal and the river. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to buy another one today when I go out. Oh, it's loud and clear. Great, great. Thank you. Yeah, Trish says it looks like mind control. Yeah, you have mind control with the psychedelic aspect of it, where you can think of people turning into other people and people being void of their souls, and they got to release souls. I mean, this is the stuff that got a lot of my peers, again, when I grew up, into the state hospital. They went in to live at the state hospital because I believe they had a propensity for really not understanding the damage that LSD could do to you. And they would take the LSD and it would trigger an onset of a delusional disorder in them. And they never could come out of it. They could never, till today, that if you were to see them on the street, they're still delusional. They probably were always delusional, but it took the LSD to really trigger them. What has triggered these people? Brainwashing? You can convince people that they're zombies. Laurie had only known Chad for months, mere months. What could he have done to Laurie in a few months to change her thinking that her children, her husband, and Chad's wife needed to be killed? What could have Chad done? What kind of pull could Chad have on a woman that in just mere months he could have changed her? I'm going to read. There is Poppies in Normandy says, there is a picture of Chad in summer sitting in Kauai. likely at the time of the wedding. Oh my golly, I haven't seen that. Oh, is that the once on that 48 hours interview? Summer said she only met Chad once. So you're telling us that it was at their wedding, at the same time of their wedding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And paid for by Tammy Daybell. Wedding paid for in part by Charles Vallow's credit card on Amazon. Paid for in part by JJ and Tylee's entitlements that they got from the U.S. government. Paid for in part by any other source that they didn't have to work for. That's why people have referred to this whole cult, this clan, this mob as grifters. Grifters essentially means you grab and run with it. And that's what they have demonstrated, that they grab the money any which way they can and they take off. They don't want to give back to where they grabbed it from. They just want to grab it from a source and run with it. Thank you, Mary Kennelly. Thank you for joining from the UK. I'm glad. It looks like mind control, like the Scientology. Yeah, I'm going to go back to that. The Scientology. Yeah, I don't have enough information about them, but they do that auditing. They bring up it's called audit, and they do auditing on you, which brings up muck from your childhood. It's a psychological pulling of the muck that came from your childhood. And I think once they pull that muck up from your childhood, whatever your bad environments or situations were in childhood, they pull that up and they get you numb. That's my idea. I'm way off there a little bit, but I know that they use auditing. Bella Elena says they all lied, the entire Cox family, however delirious and just downright stupid in everything they have participated in. All while pile up one charge after the others will go down. Yes, I believe, Bella, that they all have to go down. And I feel bad. I'm not sure if Janis Cox has turned 74 yet. I'm not sure. The last time I knew, she was 73. But this charge would get her, what did I say, 5 years at least, maybe 10. No, wait. This one would get her 6 months in jail, 3 years probation, and a $2,500 fine. And you guys know how much they hate paying the government any money. Betty Spaghetti says exactly, Trish. In one of Alex's stand-ups, he mentioned cocaine, I think. A lot of these new psychotropic drugs and stimulants cause psychosis and delusions. Huh. Are you saying that he could have been on a psychotropic drug, Betty? DJ Norman says, no one talks about the killers taking right index finger tip or right greater toe for use in rituals. Bones and holy relics. Toes taken from righteous and fingers from the evil. Oh my God. DJ saying that Mormon doctrine says that, I guess. Oh my God. They need secret handshakes described as tokens to get into heaven. I'll give them a secret identifier, a boot in the you-know-where. That'll be my secret identifier, but let the judicial system do what they need to do with all of them. And they got to tie in all of these tentacles. There's too many tentacles out there. There's too many people that are influenced with this crazy, bizarre thinking of living multiple lives, about being married to multiple people, and all of this stuff. I know that part of it's part of LSD, LDS doctrine. Same thing. I'm starting to believe. I don't want to ever put down a religion, because there's always a portion of the religions that have their head screwed on right. We are only talking about the LDS portion that don't have their head screwed on right. Hi, Ash. We're talking about Janis Cox and her blatant lie on the 48 Hours interview, where she said that she had a little jibber jabber session with JJ on October 1st. And we are stating that there's two parts of a crime: the thinking part that you can't get arrested for. So it takes thinking, and then it takes the act. And the act was that she showed us, the crime is that she was falsifying information to law enforcement to either ask them to think about going in a different direction by giving them that information, or to stop them for whatever mission they were on. But let's put it this way: Janis Cox isn't that smart that she outsmarted the law enforcement that day of the interview. They laughed at that. But I know that someone had said they ransacked her home after that interview. They would have had probable cause to do that if indeed they did do that. If they went into the house, just the probable cause on that statement that JJ and her had that conversation, that she showed that phone bill, would have probably given them enough probable cause to go into Janice and Barry's home and ransack it. Yeah, Chad has to blame it on Alex and say he wasn't home, or Alex told him it was JJ's dog. It's so worrying. Yes, Carrie. Yes, you're 100% right. These attorneys are paid to lie. When they have defense attorneys, it's called any way out. Their job is to get their client out any way they can. So they'll take lies, they'll take distortions. But let's put it this way: when you're dealing with crazies like that, how useful is their client going to be? I mean, they're going to come up with some crazy stories. They can't keep crazy out of it. When you're crazy, you can't keep crazy out of it. It's Mormon, DJ says, it's Mormon theology from the temple, signs and tokens and secret handshakes. Just Google it. Yes, people, Google it. DJ Norman is always advising us of these doctrines or these theologies that aren't understandable to us that are not LDS. They're understandable to us that are LSD, but not LDS. Betty Spaghetti says, you were so right, Graham. I said I thought they were all on drugs, and a lot of people laughed at me. Yeah, it's like, what do they got out there? They got psychedelic mushrooms, peyote. I forget exactly how to say it. There's psychedelic mushrooms out there in the West. There's all kinds of Native American ways that you can have psychedelic thinking like that. You know, they always use those rainbow spinning wheels to show psychedelic, but psychedelic isn't always just colors, images. They're bad thoughts again. And so when you get those bad thoughts, or like someone's chasing me and they're really not, and you're running into traffic, you've seen that before. You go to whoever's in the car with you, you go, wow, they're on drugs. They're running in the middle of traffic with that 1,000-mile stare. You know, their eyes are so wide open, and they got that because they don't know where they're going. In Florida, they have a drug called flakka. And I've seen them walking on the highways, people on flakka. They have a certain walk to them. They kind of shift from side to side. And that makes them not know where they are. They just don't know physically where they are. Chad talked to Tammy's grandmother on 9/23 every year and wrote in his book about it. He talked to the dead spirits and killed Tylee on the date of 9/23. Yeah, the pig wouldn't even let her live to her birthday, which would have been the next day, right? Or live to the 25th so that she could have had her 17-year-old birthday. They had to murder her the day before or the day of her birthday. What mean? What mean people? What mean people? And like I've told you before, I've talked to an engineer about this, not that his training is in burning bodies, but he believes in part that she was burnt because they had to section off her and put tiny pieces in, because you cannot burn a body. It takes a couple of days at the hottest fire that you can build, and they couldn't do that. That would have been highly noticeable. To make the kind of fire that they would have needed to burn her whole would have taken notice by the community. And they probably wouldn't have even had the right kinds of woods and that kind of stuff to make that hot of a fire. I know this is gruesome and I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but his belief is just from life experience and having an engineering background, considering the body is 60%, if not more, water. You cannot burn a body on a bonfire temperature fire without doing it little by little. That's all I'll speak of that. I'm really don't like talking about those things. Satanism describes a person's birthday as the holiest date for that person. Many Mormon elite died on their birthday, way above statistical expectations, and is described on Facebook under the name of James Northman. Oh, thank you for that, guys. If you want to look up James Northman and read about dying on your birthday. I wonder how Chad's kids didn't stumble upon anything or smell burning flesh, at least. Very sad, Ash says. Yes, Ash. I don't want to throw stones to hurt other people, but because they have been so silent and still silent about all of this, I still have a question mark and still praying that they did not have or help cover up any part of the crimes. A neighbor had said there were odd fires at the property previously. That was only a day or so before police got the search warrant and found the children. Yeah, Jenny, I had heard that too. That yes, I know that some creators were talking about it, like even up to like 2 weeks before the bodies were found. There was mention of bonfires, very, very large, being so. Yes, could one, many, or all of Chad's children and or friends be involved with the cover-up of JJ and Tylee? They friggin' live there, Gumshoe. Ash says they friggin' live there, Gumshoe. Like, she's saying, were their heads in the sand? Hello, Alaska. Hot beat it. Hello back to Florida. I have a neighbor who has his father that's been visiting from Alaska for the winter. What makes me sick is that no one has been charged with the murders of Tylee and JJ, says Aaron and Lexi. And their evil mother and Doorbell are walking around in jail with laptops. Now, can someone explain? I know that they can make phone calls, which are like visuals, like they can actually see. Couldn't they mouth, like for people who can read lips, like myself, could they mouth and not anyone know? Like I can, if you're having a conversation and there's no volume, I can pretty much get the essence of a conversation. So I'm wondering if there's this sign language stuff going on with these Zoom-like meetings that they're having. Boy, DJ Norman, you really investigate this stuff. I will read the Rolling Stones article. He's saying that the Rolling Stone magazine did an article on, talked about snipping fingers off the favorite wife carried in prophet's pocket. Oh, Google the order Rolling Stones. What are you saying about Zav Girl? I love Zav Girl. Zav Girl on the YouTube did a video on September 23rd, and Chad talking to dead grandmother of his wife on that day. Yes, I do recall that, DJ. I know what it feels like, not Flocka, but the psychosis. It's scary. Yes, yeah, they have Flocka here. My granddaughter and I went to a gas station one night, and we wanted to get gas. Of course, I was probably on reserve, and I couldn't go in because it was the type of gas station you had to leave your vehicle and go pay the attendant. You couldn't use a charge card. And so I couldn't get out of my car because there was a woman on Flocka, and they go from side to side, and they don't know where they are. They walk in a short zigzag back and forth very hurriedly, like in a manic state, like back and forth. But you can't trust them because they don't know what they're doing. I think it was rehomed by the trainer. Oh, yeah, the dog. Yes, I heard, and someone can correct me, but the full story was that Laurie was trying to make a profit on the dog, Bailey. The dog's name was Bailey, and Laurie was trying to make a profit on the service dog after Charles was killed. And she put it on Craigslist. And the trainer actually saw the ad for the dog and called her on it and said, wait a minute, you don't do that. You don't rehome a dog that you get from us that's trained specifically to help with your young one's cause. Like, that dog was trained to help specifically JJ. So that dog would have to go through some more training to help a different individual. You can't just sell it to, someone down the street. But she wanted to make more money off it. She didn't want to give it back to the trainer because he wouldn't have paid her more than what she had originally bought it for. I'm from Australia, says Jenny, and heard about this on our news, so I came looking for information on the internet. I sincerely hope Chad and Laurie and whoever else is culpable and are charged. Well, that's the trick, Jennifer, is they are culpable. Now getting them charged is that they're culpable no matter what. They had their minds, as I was saying, mens rea in the legal world or in the jurisprudence world means you got to be thinking about a crime. And then there's another word that means you act upon the crime. They were all thinking about the crime. Now, who did the acts? So this is where the government, meaning the prosecutor, the district attorneys, whoever's are involved in this case, they can say that they all had mens rea. They all had thoughts about the crime. Who actually did the crime? That's the act. But they can all be charged because their thinking led to the act. So, it's dissecting the crime down into these legal thinking and acting parts. Ash said, oh yeah, thank you, Ash. Okay, so now we're at Chad and Alex have been suspected the spirit from a black person. Oh, come on. A spirit from a black person was in Tylee, thus the raccoon being shot. Very racist bunch of people in Mormonism. It's a racist book. Skin curses. Hey, DJ, when you first came on and started talking, I would have thought these thoughts are way out. But now that I understand the Cox family and the Daybells cult, your thoughts are making us understand, not your thoughts, but your statements on these chats are making us understand maybe where some of their thinking comes from. But I'm going to say this again to all people. All religion has ways that you can go into evil. It's whether you go into the religion and stay pure, or if you go into the religion and find this bad path. And that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about all LDS people going on bad paths. We're only talking about this cult, this Chad Daybell and whoever else is involved above Chad. We know Chad and Laurie were probably just about equal in their thinking, probably just about equal in their acts to do the evil that they have done. But who else is in these belief systems and that believe in acting them out is just fine. Is that why Melanie Gibb appears to be emotionless? Because in her thinking, certain acts are just fine? Is Laurie able to contact Chad on the pad? Are they zooming back and forth? Mary Donovan, I watched a news clip on that, and they pretty much said no. But it wasn't the kind of definitive no that I wanted to hear. But I do not believe jail inmates can converse in any form with another jail inmate in another jail. Oh, yeah, I love the Huskies. I love the blue eyes, those steel blue eyes of the Huskies. Is Laurie able to contact Chad on that pad? No, I don't think so. She can, her mother, they can be thinking, let's think of what Miss Cox can be planning. Her and Summer, what Janis Cox in Summer Shitlet could be planning right now. They planned that interview. They planned to be there. They made up that information that she talked to JJ on October 1 when we all know he was not on this earth anymore. So what are they planning now is my question. How are they going to try to save Laurie any further than they have already tried? They don't obviously care about manipulating. They don't obviously care about truth. Where is Melanie Pulowski? She was the worst critic of Tylee. She made out Tylee to be like almost disgusting as a teenager. You know why? Because Tylee didn't buy into their imbecile ideas. Okay. This fascinates me too. Wolves are gorgeous. Yeah. It was all about the money. Yes, Bella. How they didn't care how much blood was splattered on that money, because they only could get money in the sizable amounts that they wanted. And that money carries the blood of all of the people that they killed. It has been a train. Without Charles, they might have not have killed Tammy, because they might have been, if Charles, the $1 million that they got from Charles, if they did indeed get it, might have sufficed them for longer. But they were so money hungry. They didn't want to spend JJ and Tylee's $6,000 a month on JJ and Tylee. So they killed them so that it would open their bank accounts for themselves. Then that wasn't enough. So then they killed Tammy. And that is my belief that they all moved to Rexburg, Alex, Melanie, and Laurie, in part to murder Tammy. That's why it is a cult murder. It isn't a one-person murder. When Tammy Daybell got murdered, it was not Chad killing her. It wasn't Laurie. It was all of them. They were there for that mission. As soon as that mission was done, they all screamed like rats. Alex went back to Arizona. Melanie met Ian. And, forever Cinderella Life with Melanie Pulowski. Laurie took off to Hawaii, maybe a little early, but that was her plan anyways. Just the cops pushed her on. There is no doubt that Keith Morrison indicated that on that welfare check that Kay Woodcock had ordered is they took off for that reason. They scrammed like two big rats. They just happened to go to a place that rats aren't allowed. Kauai doesn't want big rats living there. Yeah, Julie Rowe, I don't understand any of these. Melanie Gibb, Julie Rowe, they're all part of the cult. They are all part. And that's why none of them mentioned any of the wrongdoing that would have stood out to us all along. Jennifer, they don't use Zoom. It's a program designed for prisoners to be able to speak with lawyers and visitors during non-contact because of COVID-19. Yeah. I just don't see why they have to let the people see them face to face. I guess it's because they would have seen them face to face if they came to the prison to see them. So I guess it's the same. It just seems like it's extra special and that they should have nothing extra special. I wish they would serve Laurie rat pellets that they feed rats in the cages. But I heard Laurie doesn't need food. She doesn't need water. She just needs lip gloss. Yes, I knew that Charles had talked to the cops more than once. And I also watched the interviews, and they really played down his concerns, and they really played down her culpability to Charles. In fact, they reversed it, that he was the one that had culpability in all of his actions, not Laurie. Yes, I saw that, Ash. Chad is in question over a little girl that's been missing for years. Her name is Kipling. What a beautiful little name. And yes, was she 13, 14? A little redhead, a real beautiful little girl went missing. And it has to do with something about the graveyard that Chad was working at. And that the two people that got prosecuted for the murder said that they were in part involved by helping someone dispose of the body, but they weren't the murderers. So there's been an inference that it's Chad that was the murderer. Great. Someone says no inmate to inmate contacts. Yay. Scream it loud. Yay. We want to stop the craziness to continue. But it's sad. One lawyer will tell the other lawyer. So even though they're not in contact, one lawyer will get permission from the spouses to talk to the other spouse. And yeah, so either way, they're going to be talking. It's just going to be filtered through attorneys. And of course, those attorney meetings are privileged, so they're not going to be recorded. Flock is some type of, I don't know if it's a homemade drug, but it's hallucinogenic. And as I said before, it makes you walk in zigzags. You can tell someone on flocka that they're walking aimlessly and they're walking in a somewhat of a short zigzag pattern. I've seen it twice here in Florida, once on the highway and once at a gas station. They think their bodies in other people's graves. He may have put them there. Yep. Yeah. Ash is saying they think that girl's body might be in other people's graves. And with that said, he could be, Chad could honestly be a serial killer. I mean, we don't want to think of that now because we want to just think about his destiny in this particular case. But he could be a serial killer. Maybe that was his fascination with being a grown man and a gravedigger. Thank you, Tina. Tina says that line, they scream like two big rats after the mission was accomplished. That should be what the prosecutor says in court. Oh, I'm sure the prosecutor is going to come up with his own zingers for them because the prosecution is going to have like everything opened up to him to say anything zany because in their world, they can say it. Yeah. Yeah. Heartbreak. Heartbeat Beatic says keywords in this interview regarding the purse incident was the padded room. Yes, she said rubber room, but during the interview at the police department that I've already explained and very disheartened by is when Tylee was saying that Laurie deserved a padded room. And it was because Laurie was saying, oh, I haven't slept for 3 days. Does that count? Yeah. Do they have a gym there? Well, Laurie, have you gotten your answer? Do they have a gym at where you're staying? The prosecutor in the Gannon Starch case is really good too. He's never lost a murder conviction. Great. And they're both crazies, except Letitia's the crazy, it seems, by herself. But then you get the this whole extended Daybell family. You know, whether they're the Coxes, whether they're friends in the same groups. You know, they're saying preparing a people is not a cult. Okay, just like all churches aren't cults, but there's parts of churches that have cultish practices. And so is preparing a people using cultish practices within their organization? And are they cultivating these absurd ideas about zombies taking over people's bodies and becoming Nick Schneider, and then you have to kill the zombie to let the pure soul out of the person that used to be? Crazy. If this isn't preparing a people, I'm going to call it preparing an idiot. Preparing an idiot. Jennifer says the jail has a rec room apparently with TV and etc. However, Laurie would be on the bottom of the pecking order in there, so she wouldn't be able to demand to watch what she wants. Oh. All those people died brutally, but what for, you know? Sub. That's what someone wrote. AKA Beaver Gavin. Hot Beadic says Shannon was in Alaska. Letitia didn't like her husband being stationed there. So I take it that Letitia made him get his orders moved out of Alaska. The prosecutor and Judge Elkins for this case seem like they're being very smart on this one due to the lack of evidence. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. Nate Eaton told us about 5 weeks ago, more or less, that they have evidence. They're just keeping it close to them. That's what Nate Eaton said. And he said all the pieces of the puzzle will come together when we find out. Nate doesn't know either. That's what was shared to Nate by law enforcement. Everything will make sense at the end when you're entitled to those pieces of the puzzle. So I really think that law enforcement has a lot more than we ever think they could. That's my opinion because of Nate Eaton. Yeah, oh, I like that one, Ash. Preparing a nutcase. Yeah, that's better. Preparing a nutcase. There's no longer preparing a people. It's preparing a nutcase. I got one. Good morning, Gigi. Sorry if this was said already, but I think by Janice and Summer said they couldn't ask Laurie where the kids were because they were being taped means they knew what Laurie was capable of. Yes, and they already knew. I believe that 97-minute conversation on October 1 that Miss Janis Cox said was her talk with Laurie, that she also had a talk with JJ. I think that meant something to her. I think that conversation was when Janis Cox knew that the children were no longer with us. I don't know how much she knew, but I think in their cultish brains that disposing of JJ and Tylee was commonplace for them. Just another day. Disposal of children and any means necessary was just commonplace. So in that 97-minute conversation, I believe Laurie and her were talking about the children not encumbering Laurie in any which way. Well, yeah, Ash, that's why it was so good that those GPS warrants that they got, the probable cause was great enough for them to go to those specific area. They couldn't go in with a backhoe or whatever it takes to dig up a yard, and just dig up Chad's whole yard. I wish they could have. But with these GPS articulations, they went right into those spots. So long live GPS. A lot of the cars nowadays have that GPS built right into them. You don't even need to use the phone. A lot of cars have the GPS, and if you don't have it, you can plug it in, you can buy it, and you can GPS where your children are or your grandchildren. You can see where the car's going at all times. So if your grandchild tells you they're going to, the grocery store, but they're on the side of the town that there isn't a grocery store, you can identify where they're at. So yeah, the long live GPS. If this is if that's what brought this case to its final closure for JJ and Tylee, I love GPS. So I'm going to go through. So again, just to restate how we started in this chat, what was going on in Janis Cox's mind? Did she know that when she presented that telephone invoice, that the purpose was to misrepresent information to law enforcement? And did she represent that information to law enforcement? If she just did it on the national news, that's not a direct lying to law enforcement. That's lying to us. And so be it. We know they lied to us. But did she lie to law enforcement? If so, that is enough to have her arrested, because she had the thinking of a crime and because she acted upon her thinking of the crime. That's all they have to prove, is those two parts in Arizona: her mental state and her action. And her mental state was to protect her daughter over her grandchildren without any thoughts and concerns of JJ and Tylee. So I don't think it looks good for her. Okay, we got a helicopter going right over my house. Can't see it. There it is. Could there be another reason that she shared that telephone bill on October 1? One, we know she wanted to obstruct justice. She wanted to say, nope, JJ was alive. Nope, your assumption that he got killed on September 23rd is wrong. So guys, we've been in the chat for quite a long time now. I just wanted to come on. I'll recap what I said. I wanted to come on and tell you that there's two parts: the thinking and the acting, and they have to prove both. They have to prove that the thinking came and then they acted upon the thinking to commit the crime. So her thinking was, I'm going to cover up for Laurie. Her acting was, I'm going to make up this fake phone call conversation that I had with JJ on October 1, 2019. So it's my idea that Janis Cox committed the misdemeanor crime, first degree misdemeanor in the state of Arizona, and that she can be charged if and only if she had presented that evidence to the police. If she presented that to law enforcement, she was trying to persuade them to look in a different direction. She was trying to obstruct justice. She was trying to make her daughter look less culpable of doing something harmful to JJ. So it's my opinion that she can get arrested in the future for trying to mislead, misrepresent information to law enforcement. And it states right here, it is unlawful for a person to knowingly make a law enforcement agency of either this state or a political subdivision of the state a false, fraudulent, or unfounded report or statement, or to knowingly misrepresent a fact, that's the telephone bill, for the purpose of interfering with the orderly operation of a law enforcement agency or misleading a police or peace officer. This is a violation of this section. It's a class 1 misdemeanor. With that said, guys, I'm going to part now. I thank you for being here. As everyone always says, like, subscribe, share where you can, where people might want to know that there's a possibility that we can see Janis Cox behind bars. I wouldn't mind that as a person in the United States. I wouldn't mind having someone with her culpability of lying and trying to mislead law enforcement when the case is very serious about 2 missing children. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all if she did time. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if she paid $2,500 for each misleading act that she did. And then third, I wouldn't mind seeing an old person like that, her that doesn't really show that she cares for her grandchildren, which are no longer her grandchildren, in my opinion. She hasn't deserved the title grandmother, to spend 3 years under probation, because that is the law in Arizona. So with that said, guys, I'm going to end. Please have a beautiful day. Watch out for the ugly. As you can see, the world is beautiful, but as we always say, there's a lot of ugly out here. Thank you very much.
Chad, Laurie, leave all kids alone. Hey, Chad, Laurie, leave all kids alone. All in all, it's just another lie beyond the veil. All in all, it's just another lie beyond the veil. We don't need no cult religion. We don't need Chad's thought control. No Dara Brady.